my son shouted. "Get out of the house, you're nobody here now." I left in silence. But a month later he called me in the middle of the night in a panic. But my answer shocked him because he had found out who really owned it. And before we continue, first let me thank you for watching Granny's Voice. Please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's special shout out goes to Maria from Los Angeles. Thank you for being part of our family. Now, let me tell you everything. I knew trouble was coming when Marcus started tapping his foot on the kitchen floor. That's what he always did when he was getting ready to explode. I first saw this when he was 8 and broke my favorite teacup. Now, 35 years later, I watched that same foot tapping as he stared at me across our dinner table. My hands held my spoon tighter. I knew I had done something terrible by speaking up during our meal. "Maybe we should wait on buying that motorcycle until after Christmas," I said in my quietest voice. The same voice I used when I worked at the flower shop for 28 years before I stopped working. Sarah, his wife who everyone called Sally, got very stiff next to Marcus. Her mouth became a straight line. She always looked angry, especially when she looked at me. "Mom," Marcus said like he was talking to a baby. "We already talked about this. For my job, I need to look successful." Marcus worked at the city hall checking if buildings were safe. The way Marcus talked about it, you would think he was the mayor. I looked down at my plate of chicken I had cooked. The chicken was too dry. I knew Sally would notice. "Grandma, can I have more milk?" My grandson Tommy's voice stopped the angry feeling in the room. I smiled at him. He was the only person in this house who seemed happy I was here. "Of course, sweetheart. His name is Thomas, Mother," Marcus said right away. "We've talked about this before." I got up to fill Thomas's cup. I had the right to call him Tommy until Sally decided it wasn't a good enough name for their son. Our little Rosie, who just turned 6, threw her spoon on the floor. "I don't want to eat this yucky food." "See, even Rose can't eat it," Sally said quietly, looking at my chicken. I bent down without saying anything, picked up the spoon and put it by the sink. Then I got a clean spoon from the drawer and gave it to my granddaughter. "If you don't want the chicken, honey, you can just eat the carrots," I said. "Rose can eat whatever she wants," Sally jumped in. "She had a big lunch at school." I held back a big breath. 70 years old and I still hadn't learned to keep quiet. I walked across the kitchen to sit back down. But as soon as I sat, Marcus put down his water glass hard. "We're getting the motorcycle this Saturday." He looked at me like I wasn't his mother, but like I was a stranger trying to steal from him. I slowly sat back in my chair. "Marcus, I'm just worried." "Worried about what?" He cut me off. "About how we spend our money. You don't know anything about the money I make." I felt my face get hot with shame. When did this start? When did my son begin talking to me this way? It happened slowly, like watching grass grow, but it was always getting worse. Maybe it started the day I agreed to move in with them to help with the kids after Rosie was born. Or maybe even earlier when I signed the papers at the bank, sitting in that small office, knowing Marcus had been turned down for a house loan twice and wanting to keep his pride by letting him think the bank finally said yes. 15 years ago. 15 years where he didn't know his mother really owned the house he lived in. "Those flowers look pretty," the bankman said as Marcus, Sally and I celebrated getting his house loan at the fancy restaurant. Marcus looked so proud ordering the most expensive food even though he owed lots of money. "Yeah, I think they finally saw how good I am," he told the bankman, who was his friend from playing sports together. The bankman had no idea that the papers had been changed to my name and Marcus's bank wasn't even part of the deal anymore. You know, when you finally get what you should have, it feels amazing. It took almost all the money I had saved my whole life working at the flower shop, counting money for other people's businesses. But I did it happily. After all, isn't that what moms do? "Mom," Marcus's voice brought me back to now. "Are you even listening to me?" "I'm sorry, honey," I blinked. "What did you say?" He let out a big breath like he was very tired of me. "I was saying we need you to watch the kids next weekend." Sally and I have a work trip to the beach. Work trip. I knew what that really meant. He and Sally were going to a beach hotel where Marcus was trying to make friends with people he thought were important. People he thought could help him get the better job he'd been talking about for 4 years now. Sure, I said. I'd love to spend time with Tommy and Rosie. Make sure Thomas does his school project, Sally added without looking up from her phone. Last time we came back, nothing was done because he had a fever and was sick. I wanted to say, because I spent 3 days putting cool cloths on his head and telling him he would be okay while you didn't answer my phone calls from the hotel. But I didn't say that. Instead, I nodded and started to pick up the plates. Leave them, Sally said. The cleaning lady will come tomorrow. It's not hard for me to clean, I said back, knowing that if we left the plates, the smell of chicken would fill the kitchen by morning. Mom, Marcus's voice got mean. Sally said leave them. I put the plates back down, feeling like a student who got in trouble. Whatever you say. Tommy looked at me with kind eyes. His 8-year-old heart seemed to understand how embarrassing this little fight was. I winked at him, trying to show him everything was okay. Who wants to see the new movie? Marcus asked, getting up from the table. I bought a new TV for the backyard. We can watch movies outside. A new TV. The words came out before I could stop them. Didn't you buy one last month? Silence. Heavy and scary silence. Sally looked at me with her cold blue eyes like she had found a bug on her expensive shoes. Marcus wanted to surprise the kids, she said quietly. But some people can't help but ruin things. I didn't mean to, I started. Yes, you did, Marcus interrupted. His voice dangerously quiet. You always do this, Mom. Always trying to make me feel bad for spending my own money. I just think maybe you should be more careful with. With what? He raised his voice. With my money, with my house, with my family, with my children? I looked at Tommy and Rose, who were watching us with big scared eyes. Maybe not in front of them. No, Marcus hit his hand on the table, making Rose jump. I want them to hear this too. I want them to know that their dad works very hard to take care of this family, while their grandma, who lives here for free, is always counting every dollar I spend. I don't count. You do, his face turned red. You always did. Don't buy that toy, Marcus. It costs too much. Don't go to that college, Marcus. It costs too much. Don't take that loan, Marcus. It's like you spent your whole life trying to stop me from having anything good. His words hit me like someone had slapped me. I couldn't breathe. I always wanted the best for you. The best. He laughed in a mean way. You don't know what the best is. You spent your whole life working at a flower shop counting other people's money, and now you're trying to tell me how to live. I stood up feeling weak. I think I should go to my room. Yes, go. Sally's voice was sweet like honey but sharp like a knife. We know how you like to go to bed early. Go, Marcus said again, his voice shaking with anger. That's always what you do, isn't it? Run away from problems. Pretend they don't exist. I took a step toward the door, but he followed me. You know what? Maybe you should just leave completely, he said suddenly. Marcus. Sally looked surprised but not worried. No, I mean it, he turned to her then back to me. I'm tired of it. Tired of the mean looks. Tired of you making me feel like a child in my own house. Those words made something inside me break. I knew something he didn't. But to tell him now during a fight would ruin everything. You're right, I said quietly. Maybe it's time for me to go. He blinked, clearly not expecting me to agree. But then his anger came back stronger. Yes, you're nobody here. You think you get to say how we live, but you don't. Get out of my house. You're nobody here now. His words went through the kitchen. Rose began to cry. Tommy sat frozen with big eyes. Sally put her hand on Rose's shoulder but said nothing. Nobody. The word burned me like fire. After everything I had done. After all I had given up. I took a deep breath and made my back straight. It was time to face the truth I had hidden for so long. My son was no longer the boy I read bedtime stories to. The boy whose hurt knee I kissed to make it better. He was a stranger looking at me with hate. "Okay, Marcus," I said, surprised at how calm my voice was. "I'll leave." He blinked again, like he hadn't expected me to agree so easily. Over the years, he had gotten used to me giving in, making things better, forgiving him. But this time was different. Something inside me had broken, or maybe it had finally gotten better. "Tommy, Rosie." I turned to my grandchildren, using the names that made their parents so mad. "Grandma loves you very much. Don't ever forget that." Tommy jumped up from his seat and hugged me. I pulled him close, smelling his clean hair and that special smell that was just his. "Don't go, Grandma," he whispered. "Sometimes we need to leave to find ourselves," I said quietly. "Everything will be okay." I pulled back and looked at Rose, who was hiding behind her mother. "I love you too, Rosie. Be a good girl." Then I turned and went to my room, a small bedroom at the back of the house that Sally called the guest room, even though I had lived in it for 6 years. I didn't waste time crying or feeling sorry for myself. Instead, I carefully gathered my things: clothes, pictures, a few books, and important papers. I packed them into 2 suitcases and 1 box. When I came back to the living room, Marcus was sitting on the couch, looking at his phone like nothing had happened. Sally was putting the kids to bed. "I called a taxi," I said. "It will be here in 20 minutes. Marcus looked up, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes. Not sorry, but maybe surprised that I was really leaving. "Where are you going to go?" he asked, not getting up from his seat. "I have a place," I replied. Another secret I had kept. The small apartment I had rented to other people all these years, keeping it just in case. It was like part of me always knew this day would come. "You don't need to be so dramatic." His voice became like he was talking to a child. "Stay until morning. Find a normal place." "No thank you," I shook my head. "I think you're right. I should leave now." We stood in uncomfortable silence until we heard a car outside. "That's my taxi." Picked up my suitcases. "Do you need help?" he asked, but he didn't get up from the couch. "No, I can do it," I replied, even though the suitcases were heavy for my 70-year-old arms. "Goodbye, Marcus." I walked out the front door without looking back. The taxi driver helped me with my bags, and soon we were driving through the streets of Maplewood, past nice houses with green lawns and garages for 2 cars. As we turned the corner, I let one tear fall, not because I was sad, but because I felt free. For 15 years I had lived a lie, pretending the house was Marcus's, keeping up the story of his success. Now that lie, like so many others, would be behind me. There was a time for truth. But not today. Today, I would simply walk away with quiet dignity, taking only what was mine. And in a month, everything would change. The keys to the apartment at 42 Pine Street had been in my coat pocket for the past 6 years. I touched them every day like a lucky charm, a reminder that I always had a way out. Now, standing in front of the familiar blue door, I used them for the first time for their real purpose. The apartment greeted me with the smell of lemon cleaner and light dust. The last people who lived here, a young couple who were teachers, had moved out 4 weeks ago, and I had already cleaned everything, not knowing why. Now I knew. My footsteps echoed in the empty living room. The furniture was simple. A couch I had bought on sale 12 years ago, a coffee table, a lamp, shelves for books. Everything useful, nothing extra, just like my whole life. I put the suitcases down and walked to the window. It looked out at a small park with 1 bench and 4 oak trees. Nothing fancy, but it was my space, just mine. My phone made a sound in my purse. Text from Tommy. "Grandma, are you okay? I miss you." My fingers stayed over the phone screen. What could I tell an 8-year-old boy? That his father had broken my heart. That I had kept secrets for so many years they felt heavier than rocks. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Grandma has her own apartment now. Maybe you can visit when I'm all settled." I sent the message, doubting that Marcus or Sally would ever let it happen. But lying to protect feelings is what mothers do best. That night, I slept on the couch wrapped in an old blanket I had taken from Marcus's house. I had thought of it as Marcus's house for so long that I had almost forgotten the truth. Almost. In the morning, the first thing I did was open my old address book with a worn brown cover. On the L page was one entry. Linda Peterson, lawyer, with a phone number I hadn't called in 15 years. Ms. Peterson's office. How can I help you? A woman's voice said on the phone. Good morning. My name is Dorothy Miller. I need to make an appointment to see Ms. Peterson about house ownership papers. Of course, Mrs. Miller. Miss Peterson can see you Thursday morning at 11. Would that work for you? Yes, thank you. Thursday was 3 days away. 3 days to decide if I was ready to do what I should have done long ago. I spent those days making my apartment feel like home. I bought food, sheets, a few plants. The little things that make a place feel like yours. Nobody called except Tommy, who sent short messages when, as he said, Mom and Dad can't see. Not one word from Marcus. I wasn't surprised. My son had always been good at avoiding uncomfortable situations. Wednesday night, Betty called. Where have you been? Her voice sounded worried. I called your house, but Sally said you decided to live alone. What's happening? Betty Jones had been my friend since we worked together at the flower shop. She was the only person who knew most of my secrets, but not all of them. Can you come over? Yes. I need someone to talk to. An hour later, we were sitting at my kitchen table drinking tea from the old cups I had brought with me. So he kicked you out? Betty shook her head, her gray hair moving with her movements. After all you've done for him. He doesn't know what I've done, I replied quietly. That's the problem. I had never told Betty about who really owned Marcus's house. It was a secret I kept too close to my heart. She covered my hand with hers. How long are you going to let him treat you badly? There was no judgment in her question, only real concern. And yet I felt shame. You don't understand. Yes, I do, she interrupted. I've watched it happen for years. Marcus only calls you when he needs something. Money, babysitting, help, and when you need him. Where was he when you had your operation 2 years ago? He was busy at work. I automatically defended him. He was at a golf game, Betty reminded me. I picked you up from the hospital, remember? While your son was playing golf with his boss friends. I stayed quiet, staring at the tea in my cup. Betty was right. She always was. Remember Christmas last year? She continued. When you gave Rose that expensive doll she wanted, and Sally told everyone that she and Marcus had bought it. Sally just wanted Rose to think her parents give the best gifts, not her grandma, I finished for her. And then they asked you to lend them money for a trip to Hawaii a month later, Betty said. Beside, every story Betty mentioned was stacked in my memory like old bills I didn't want to look at. $15,000, I said quietly. They asked me for $15,000 for a down payment on a new car last year. I gave them the money and Marcus bought a sports car instead of the family car we talked about. Betty's eyes got big. And you're still defending him. He's my son. He's a grown man who should take care of his own problems. Betty drank her tea. What are you going to do now? I stood up and walked to the window. There was an old man and woman sitting on the park bench holding hands. I watched them for a moment, then turned to Betty. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. Her eyes got wide. Are you finally going to tell him about the house? My silence was my answer. Dorothy. Betty shook her head. You should have done this years ago. I know, I turned back to the table. But I always thought if he found out, it would destroy our relationship. What relationship? Betty asked bitterly. The one where you give everything and he takes it all for granted. Her words hit too close to my heart. I turned away, hiding sudden tears. I'm sorry, her voice got soft. I didn't mean to be cruel. I just hate seeing him treat you this way. Sometimes I wonder what I did wrong, I admitted. What I did wrong raising him. You didn't do anything wrong, Betty said firmly. You raised him alone after Robert died. You did your best. Robert, my husband, who died in a car accident when Marcus was only 14. Sometimes I wondered if Marcus would have been different if his father had lived longer. Maybe I spoiled him too much, I said, trying to make up for losing his father. You were a good mother, Dorothy. Betty squeezed my hand. And you still are. But being a good mother doesn't mean letting your child hurt you. We sat quietly as our tea got cold. You know what the saddest part is? Finally said. I miss my grandchildren. Tommy is such a sweet boy. And even Rose. Under all that spoiling, there's something special about her. You're not allowed to see your own grandchildren. Betty asked angrily. No, not really, I shook my head. It's just, I don't know how things will be after what happened. After what's going to happen. Betty hugged me tight before she left. You deserve better than this, Dorothy. Remember that when you go see the lawyer. I stayed up most of the night thinking about memories like old photographs. Marcus at 7, proudly showing me his first A in spelling. At 15, awkward and sad after his father died, but still needing me, though he wouldn't say it. Marcus at 21, fresh out of college, sure the world belonged to him. Marcus at 28, holding baby Tommy for the first time. For a moment, back to being the boy I once knew. When did he change? Or maybe he had always been this way and I just didn't want to see it. In the morning, I wore my best dress, a dark green one with a flower pin on the collar. I fixed my hair neater than usual. When I looked in the mirror, I saw Dorothy Miller, who had spent 28 years at the flower shop without making a single mistake. Careful, thorough, strong. Linda Peterson's office was in an old stone building downtown. The secretary, the same woman who had talked to me on the phone, took me to an office that smelled like books and wood. Linda Peterson had gotten older since I last saw her, but her handshake was still firm. Mrs. Miller, she pointed to the chair across from her desk. It's good to see you again, though I guess the reasons aren't happy ones. I'm afraid not. I sat down, smoothing my dress over my knees. What can I do for you? I pulled a folder of papers out of my bag, all organized with colored tabs. 15 years ago, you helped me buy a house for my son, I began. A house on Oak Street, number 28. Yes, I remember that deal, she nodded. It was an unusual situation. You bought the property in your name, but let your son think he owned it. That's right, I nodded. Now I need to make things clear. Linda tilted her head slightly. May I ask what changed? I took a deep breath. My son kicked me out of the house. I expected surprise, but Linda just nodded like she had heard similar stories many times. Maybe she had. I see. And you want to claim your ownership of the property? Yes. I opened the folder. It's all here. The deed, tax papers, utility bills, insurance. I paid for everything over the years. Linda looked through the documents, nodding sometimes. Everything is in perfect order, Mrs. Miller. Legally, the house belongs to you. It always has. Your son has no rights to it except what you gave him. What about his family? Yes. He has a wife and 2 children. That doesn't change your ownership, Linda explained. Although, of course, there are moral questions about making a family with children leave. But legally the house is yours, and you can do with it what you want. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and worry. What do you think I should do? Linda leaned back in her chair, folding her hands over her stomach. It depends on what you want to achieve, Mrs. Miller. Do you want to take back the house, sell it, or just set some rules? That was a good question. What did I want? I had thought about it a lot over the past few days, but I still wasn't sure. I want my son to understand the value of what he has, I finally said. And I want to be treated with respect. Linda nodded understandingly. In that case, we have a few choices. We can prepare a notice of your ownership and ask your son to sign a formal rental agreement. Or we can be more direct and demand back rent for all the years he lived in the house rent-free. Back rent. That had never occurred to me. Yes, Linda picked up a calculator. At current market prices, rent for a house like this in Maplewood is about $1,500 a month. Over 15 years, that's. She pressed a few buttons. About $270,000. Of course, we could ask for less given the family relationship. I couldn't breathe. $270,000. The amount seemed impossible. I don't think Marcus can pay that much, I said. Probably not, Linda agreed. But it gives us a good position to negotiate. We can offer an alternative. Either he starts paying reasonable rent or he finds another place to live. Thought for a moment. Seemed fair. After all I ever wanted was fairness. There's another thing to consider, Linda continued. Over the years, your son may have taken out loans against the house, thinking it was his property. If so, it could create legal problems. I felt like someone had poured cold water on me. Marcus and his constant money schemes. Of course he could have done that. How can we find out? I can check the records, Linda replied. It's standard procedure. She wrote a note in her book. What do you want to do next, Mrs. Miller? I looked at the papers on the table. 15 years of silence. 15 years of letting Marcus think he owned everything. Prepare all the necessary paperwork, I said firmly. I want my ownership officially confirmed, and I want a rental agreement written up with fair rent. Linda nodded. And about the back rent? Thought for a moment. Include that in the paperwork, but as an option. I'm not sure I'll demand it. Okay, Linda made another note. I'll have everything ready within the week. In the meantime, Mrs. Miller, I would suggest you don't talk to your son about this. Let the first notice come from me officially. I nodded, feeling strangely relieved to put this heavy burden in someone else's hands. Leaving Linda Peterson's office, I felt like I had dropped a heavy backpack I'd been carrying my whole life. For the first time in a long time, I walked with my back straight, without the usual weight on my shoulders. My phone rang as I got in the taxi. Marcus's number. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. A second later, a message came through. Mom, we need to talk about the kids. Call me. Not, how are you? Not, I'm sorry. Not, I was wrong. Just another request, another need. I put my phone in my purse without answering. Where to? The taxi driver asked. To the city park, please, I answered. I hadn't been outside in a long time. I spent the whole day walking around the park, looking at flowers and trees I had never really noticed before. I bought myself ice cream, a small treat I didn't usually allow myself, and ate it while sitting on a bench by the pond. When I got back to my apartment, I found 4 missed calls from Marcus and 1 message from Tommy. Dad's angry you're not answering. Can I come visit you? I texted him back. Soon, dear. Right now, Daddy and Mommy need time to think things over. That evening, Betty called. How did it go with the lawyer? Good, I answered. She's preparing the papers. Marcus will know the truth soon. And how are you feeling? I thought about it for a moment. Strangely I feel free. Like I can finally breathe. That's how it should be. I could hear the smile in her voice. You've lived for others too long, Dorothy. It's time to live for yourself. After the call, I sat down at the kitchen table with a notepad and pen. The organized part of me always liked lists and order. I started writing what I want to do for myself. 1. Travel. London, Italy. 2. Learn something new. Painting. 3. Get a cat, a small calm one. 4. Read all the books I've been putting off for years. 5. Find a way to see my grandchildren without depending on Marcus. Looking at the list, I felt excitement I hadn't felt in years. At 70, life wasn't ending. It was just beginning. The next 4 weeks passed in a pleasant routine. I decorated the apartment the way I liked, met new neighbors and joined the local book club. Marcus kept calling, often at first, then less and less. I answered briefly and matter-of-factly, never mentioning the house. Tommy sent me regular messages about school, his friends, the new robot toy he was building. In the 5th week, there was a call from Linda Peterson. Mrs. Miller, the paperwork's ready. I'd like you to come in and sign it. Of course, I replied. I'll be there tomorrow morning. There's something else, she said, worry in her voice. I checked the records as we discussed. I'm afraid the situation is more complicated than we thought. What do you mean? Your son has taken out several loans using the house as collateral. Without your knowledge or consent, which is illegal since he doesn't own it. But there's a bigger problem. The house is being foreclosed on as part of a lawsuit. Foreclosure. I felt the blood drain from my face. What kind of lawsuit? It has to do with unpaid loans and possibly some fraud your son is suspected of. I don't know all the details yet, but it's serious. I sank into my chair, feeling my knees go weak. What does this mean for me? For the house? For you personally, nothing, since you weren't involved in these deals. For the house, it depends on whether we can prove your son acted without your consent using property that didn't belong to him. I'm confident we can do that. We have all the documentation we need. I closed my eyes, trying to understand the information. Marcus and his money schemes. I always knew they would lead to problems someday, but I didn't realize how serious. What should I do now? Come in tomorrow as we planned, Linda said. We'll sign the papers and plan how to proceed. Don't worry, Mrs. Miller. The law is on your side. After the call, I sat still for a long time, staring out the window at the oak trees in the park. Their leaves were starting to turn orange, a reminder that everything changes. Everything transforms, including me. That night I made a decision. I would no longer save Marcus from the consequences of his actions. I would not sacrifice my well-being for his comfort. For too long I had let him use me, take me for granted, not appreciate everything I did. Not anymore. It was time for Dorothy Miller to stand up for herself. The next morning I signed all the paperwork in Linda Peterson's office. An official notice of my ownership of the house, a request for 15 years of back rent, documents proving that Marcus had acted without my knowledge or consent in using the house as collateral. When will he find out? I asked, putting down the pen after the last signature. The notice will be delivered tomorrow, Linda replied. Be prepared for a call from him right after that. I nodded, feeling strangely calm. The calm of someone who had finally decided to act instead of react. I'll be ready. Friday morning started with an unexpected call. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered. An old habit from years of working at the flower shop where every call could be important. Mrs. Miller. The voice on the other end was female and formal. My name is Patricia Williams. I'm the secretary at Maplewood Elementary School. We're having a problem with Tommy. My heart sank. Is something wrong? Is he okay? Physically he's fine, Patricia quickly assured me. But this morning he came to school very upset. He started crying during math class. When the school counselor talked to him, Tommy said he wanted to see you. We called his parents but couldn't reach them. I was already looking for my apartment keys. I'll be there in 30 minutes. 40 minutes later, I was sitting in the school counselor's office holding the hand of a crying Tommy. His freckled face was red and puffy from tears. Grandma, they fight all the time, he whispered when the counselor left to give us privacy. Daddy yells at Mommy. Mommy yells at Daddy. Last night she threw a book at him. I stroked his hair, feeling my heart break. What are they fighting about, Tommy? His blue eyes filled with fresh tears. It's about money. It's always about money. Dad says we're poor and Mom says it's all his fault. He sniffled. Then some people came to the house and Daddy yelled at them. He says they want to take our house away. And then the letter came yesterday and everything got really bad. I took a tissue from my purse and wiped his cheeks. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups act silly. I want to live with you, he said suddenly, squeezing my hand tighter. Can I live with you? His words broke my heart. How could I explain this complicated situation to an 8-year-old boy? It's not that simple right now, Tommy, but I promise I'll always be here when you need me. I kissed his forehead. Now let's get you cleaned up and back to class. Learning is very important. After I made sure Tommy had calmed down and returned to class, I called Betty. Have you heard anything about Marcus? I asked when we met at the coffee shop across from the school. Betty pressed her lips together. Only rumors. Margaret from the garden club lives 3 houses down from them. She says she saw people in dark suits with papers coming to their house last week. And her husband Jim was playing golf with Paul Stevens. You remember Paul? He works at City Hall with Marcus. Betty, I interrupted, knowing how she likes to tell long stories. What's wrong? She leaned closer, lowering her voice. They say Marcus has been suspended. Some kind of investigation. Something about building inspections. I felt the blood drain from my face. An investigation. You think he's... I don't think anything, Betty said quickly. Just rumors. But you know Marcus. He's always been a little too eager to get ahead. Eager. A nice way of saying my son always wanted more than he deserved and faster than he should get it. After meeting with Betty, I decided to walk through downtown Maplewood, trying to organize my thoughts. As I passed the car dealership, I saw a familiar figure. Marcus was standing next to his motorcycle, talking loudly to the salesman. Even from far away, it was clear the conversation wasn't pleasant. Marcus was waving his hands, his face red, and the salesman was shaking his head with a firm expression. I quickly crossed to the other side of the street, not wanting Marcus to see me. But from the corner of my eye, I saw him hit his fist on the motorcycle seat in anger, then get on it and drive away, the engine roaring loudly. Trying to sell it or asking for delayed payments. Either way, it wasn't good. That evening, I got a strange text from Sally. Tommy can stay at your place this weekend. Not a please. Not if it's not too much trouble. Not even a hello. Just a demand disguised as a request. Typical Sally. But this time, behind her rudeness, I sensed desperation. Of course, I replied. I can pick him up from school on Friday. What about Rose? She'll go to my sister's. So the children were being sent away from home. The situation was clearly getting worse. Friday afternoon, I was waiting at the school gate when the bell rang. Tommy ran out first, his face lighting up when he saw me. He was followed by his teacher with a worried look. Mrs. Miller, may I speak with you for a moment? I sent Tommy to wait on the bench and walked over to the teacher. I'm Miss Davis, Tommy's teacher, she said, shaking my hand. I'm a little worried. His grades have dropped a lot in the last 3 weeks, and he's not doing his homework. It's not like him at all. It's a difficult time at home right now, I said gently. I'll try to help him with his homework this weekend. One more thing, Miss Davis added. The payment for the school field trip and lunch money didn't come in this week. I tried to contact Tommy's parents, but had no luck. I felt my face turn red with embarrassment for my son. How much is needed? She told me the amount and I immediately wrote a check, feeling angry at Marcus and sorry for Tommy. The boy shouldn't suffer because of his parents' carelessness. The weekend with Tommy was both happy and worrying. I cooked his favorite foods, helped him with his homework, and we even went to see a movie. But behind his apparent cheerfulness, I could see anxiety. As we sat at the kitchen table on Sunday evening, working on his model airplane, he suddenly asked, "Grandma, are we going to lose our house?" The question caught me off guard. What makes you think that, Tommy? He put down his glue, looking at his hands. I heard Daddy tell Mommy that we might lose the house. And then Mom started crying and screaming that it was all because of his stupid investments. He looked at me with seriousness too old for his 8 years. What are investments? I took a deep breath, searching for simple words. Investments are when people put their money into things hoping to get more money later. But sometimes they lose the money they put in instead. Like gambling, he asked, too smart for his 8 years. Sometimes it's very similar, I admitted. Especially when the person isn't very careful. Daddy was talking about some stocks that were supposed to go up, but they went down instead. Also about a business that failed and some computer money. Held back a sigh. Marcus was always looking for quick ways to get rich, refusing to believe that real money was built slowly, piece by piece. As impatient as he was as a child, when he couldn't wait for glue on his model airplanes to dry and they would break in his hands. Don't worry about the house, Tommy, I said, though inside I was worried too. The adults will figure out those problems. He nodded, but I could see my words didn't convince him. Monday morning when I took Tommy to school, he hugged me tight, not wanting to let go. I don't want to go home after school, he whispered. Can I come to your place again? You need to be with your parents, Tommy, I said softly. But you can always call me if you need anything. Later that day, I ran into Sally at the grocery store. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes and messy hair. When she saw me, she tried to walk away down another aisle, but I stopped her. Sally, wait. How are you? Tommy's very worried. She pressed her lips together, but her usual coldness was weakened by clear signs of stress. Everything's fine. Just temporary problems. If you need help. We don't need your help, she cut me off. But then her shoulders dropped. Marcus will fix it. He always does. There was no confidence in her voice, only tired hope of a woman who had believed empty promises too long. What happened at his job? I asked carefully. Sally jerked like someone had hit her. Nothing. Just a misunderstanding. They'll bring him back as soon as they sort it out. She looked at her watch. I have to go. She quickly left, leaving me with a cart full of questions and worries. The next day, I got an unexpected visitor. William Parker, a longtime family friend and lawyer who had helped with Robert's will after he died, rang my apartment doorbell. Dorothy. He looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot in the doorway. I'm sorry for coming without calling. May I come in? I led him to the living room and offered him coffee, which he politely declined. I'm here unofficially, he began as we sat down, as a friend of the family. The thing is, I heard about Marcus's troubles. What kind of troubles? I asked, though I already had a rough idea. William sighed, running his hand through his thin hair. He's under investigation, Dorothy. The district attorney's office is looking into him for building inspection fraud. It's suspected he's been taking money to approve unsafe buildings. Closed my eyes. Right. My son took bribes. How serious is it? Serious enough, William said softly but honestly. If the charges stick, he could face not only losing his job but criminal charges, maybe even jail time. Oh my God, I breathed. What about his money situation? Disaster from what I hear, William shook his head. Credit card debt, unpaid bills, late house payments. House payments? I asked, feeling my stomach clench. Marcus couldn't have house payments on a house he didn't own. Unless. Yes, William nodded. I understand he's taken out several mortgages on the house over the years. First for repairs, then for investments, then just to pay other debts. He used the house as collateral. My house. Without my knowledge or permission. William, I said, trying to stay calm. The house on Oak Street, number 28. It doesn't belong to Marcus. William frowned. What do you mean? I bought that house 15 years ago in my own name. Marcus never owned it. William's face went pale. Are you sure? I stood up and got a folder of papers from my desk. Copies of the ones I'd given Linda Peterson. Here's the purchase agreement. Here are the tax records for the last 15 years. I own the house completely. William looked through the documents, his eyebrows getting higher with each page. Dorothy, he said at last, this changes everything. If Marcus was mortgaging property that didn't belong to him, that's fraud, serious fraud. I sank back onto the couch, feeling dizzy. What should I do? You need a good lawyer, William said firmly. Someone who specializes in real estate and fraud. I can recommend some names. I already have a lawyer, I replied. Linda Peterson. She helped me buy the house and is now preparing documents to clarify the situation. William nodded. Good choice. Peterson's excellent, but you need to act fast, Dorothy. If the house gets seized as part of the investigation or the lenders start foreclosure proceedings, things will get much more complicated. After William left, I immediately called Linda Peterson with the new information. She confirmed what I already knew. The situation was serious, but my ownership should be protected if I could prove I hadn't authorized Marcus to take these actions. 4 days later, my phone rang late at night. Betty's name appeared on the screen. "Did you hear?" she asked without greeting, her voice strained. "Hear what?" "There's been a foreclosure on Marcus's house right now. The police and some men in suits are there. Margaret called me 10 minutes ago. She can see everything from her window." I felt the world slowing down. "Foreclosure? You mean official seizure of property?" Betty confirmed. "Margaret says they put some papers on the door and sealed it. Marcus was yelling at them and Sally took the kids to the backyard." "Oh my God," I whispered. "What should I do?" "Nothing," Betty said firmly. "You don't have to save him this time, Dorothy. He's a grown man who made serious mistakes." I knew she was right. But that didn't stop the pain spreading in my chest. Despite everything, Marcus was still my son, and Tommy and Rose didn't deserve this chaos. "Call your lawyer," Betty advised. "Let her handle the legal side." After talking to Betty, I immediately called Linda Peterson, leaving a message on her answering machine. Then I tried to call Tommy, but the phone was disconnected. I left a message asking him to call back when he could and telling him everything would be okay. I spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling and imagining my grandchildren's confused faces. Despite all the hurt, I couldn't help worrying about them. About Marcus too, though part of me wanted him to finally face the consequences of his actions. 3 a.m, my phone rang. This time it was Marcus's name on the screen. I hesitated, looking at the vibrating phone. Part of me wanted to ignore the call, to let him experience some of the despair I felt when he kicked me out. But I couldn't. Even now, after everything, I couldn't. "Hello," I answered, keeping my voice steady. "Mom." Marcus's voice sounded broken, shaking with panic I hadn't heard since he was a little boy. "Mom, I need your help. They've foreclosed on the house. They're saying I committed fraud. Sally's hysterical. The kids are scared. I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes, feeling a strange mix of pain and determination. "What exactly do you want me to do, Marcus?" "I don't know," his voice broke. "Money. Can you lend me money or talk to someone? You always knew people at the bank. Maybe they can do something. Or we could stay at your place until things settle down." Typical Marcus. Asking without offering anything in return. Not even apologizing for how he treated me. I took a deep breath. "I'm afraid I can't help you this time, Marcus." "What?" His voice went from begging to disbelief instantly. "What do you mean? You're my mother. You have to help." "No, Marcus," I said firmly. "I don't have to and I won't. Not this time." But what are we going to do? Where will we go?" There was desperation in his voice. "Mom, please. If not for me, then for the children." It was a low blow and he knew it. What do you mean?" His voice became quiet, careful. "The house belongs to me," I said simply. "It always has. I bought it 15 years ago and let you think you got a mortgage to protect your pride." Another pause, even longer. "You're lying," he finally said, but there was no confidence in his voice. "You're just trying to get back at me. Check the papers, Marcus. Real papers, not the fake ones you must have made to get the loans. The house at 28 Oak Street is registered in the name of Dorothy Elizabeth Miller." "No." His breathing got faster. "No, that's impossible. I would have known." "You only knew what you wanted to know," I replied. "As always. That means..." His voice shook. "Does that mean the house can't be taken? Does it mean we're safe?" I shook my head, though he couldn't see it. "It means you used property you didn't own as collateral. That's fraud, Marcus. And it only makes your situation worse." "Oh my God!" He seemed to start choking. "Oh God, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I believe you," I said quietly. "But that doesn't change what you did. Help me." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Please, Mom. I'll make it right. I swear I'll change. Just help me this once." I closed my eyes, feeling tears run down my cheeks. How many times had I heard those promises? How many times had I believed them? I can't save you from the consequences of your actions, Marcus, I said. Not this time. What are you going to do? There was real fear in his voice. I will protect my property, I replied. And I will make sure Tommy and Rose are okay. And what about me? That's up to you. You can't do this. His voice suddenly turned angry. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. I've been helping you your whole life, Marcus, I said tiredly. And look where it got you. I'm broke, he shouted. I could go to jail, and you're talking about consequences? Yes, I answered firmly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Damn it, Mom, his voice broke. Don't do this. Please, I'm begging you. I felt my heart tearing apart. Despite everything he had done, he was still my son. The boy I held when he was hurt. The boy whose tears I wiped away. But he was also the man who kicked me out of my own home. Who used me for years and then threw me away when I dared to object. Who took bribes, forged documents, and lived beyond his means without caring about the consequences. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, I said calmly. My lawyer will be at the house with my ownership papers. We'll meet there and discuss what happens next. Mom. Good night, Marcus. I ended the call, feeling strangely calm. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a puppet in my son's hands. For the first time, I was the one in control. I put the phone on the bedside table and closed my eyes. Tomorrow would be a difficult day, but I was ready for it. Ready to finally stand up for myself and demand the respect I deserved. I woke up well before sunrise after restless sleep. My thoughts swirled around the upcoming meeting with Marcus. For so many years I had kept the house secret, hoping it would keep peace in our family. Now I realized that maybe that secret was part of the problem, not the solution. I spent the morning carefully preparing for the confrontation ahead. I chose my best dress, navy blue with silver buttons. I styled my hair more carefully than usual. I ate breakfast, toast and coffee, though each bite barely went down. At 9:30, Linda Peterson called. I'll be at your place in 10 minutes, Mrs. Miller, she said in her calm, professional voice. Are you ready? As ready as I can be, I replied, looking at myself in the mirror. An older woman with straight shoulders and determined eyes I hardly recognized. When Linda and I pulled up to the house at 28 Oak Street, the first thing I noticed was the official seizure notice taped to the front door. Yellow police tape crossed the driveway. 2 cars were parked on the grass, Marcus's old sedan, and an SUV I didn't recognize. Looks like we have company, Linda said, parking at the curb. We got out and Linda pulled a file folder from her briefcase. I froze for a moment, staring at the house I'd bought 15 years ago. The house where I'd been both happy and miserable. Ready? Linda asked. I nodded and we walked toward the door. Before we could knock, the door opened. Marcus stood there, his face pale and thin like he hadn't slept in days. Behind him, I saw Sally sitting on the couch looking completely defeated, and 2 men in dark suits standing by the fireplace with official expressions. Mom, Marcus's voice sounded hoarse. You came. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Linda coughed politely beside me. Mr. Miller, my name is Linda Peterson. I'm your mother's attorney. May we come in? We have legal matters to discuss. Marcus blinked like he'd only just noticed Linda. Yes, of course, he stepped back, letting us in. These are investigators from the prosecutor's office. They're looking into my case. One of the suited men stepped forward. Agent Rodriguez, District Attorney's Office. He introduced himself, shaking Linda's hand. And you are? Linda Peterson, representing Mrs. Dorothy Miller. Linda shook the agent's hand. Who is the legal owner of this property? There was heavy silence in the room. Sally looked up sharply, her eyes widening. What do you mean? The second agent, who introduced himself as Agent Kim, asked. Linda opened her briefcase and pulled out the paperwork. The house at 28 Oak Street has been owned by Mrs. Dorothy Miller since she purchased it 15 years ago. Here's the purchase agreement, tax records, and ownership certificate. Agent Rodriguez took the documents and began looking through them, his eyebrows rising with each page. This changes the situation significantly, he said finally, turning to Marcus. Mr. Miller, you claim to be the owner of this house. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it like a fish out of water. His eyes darted between me, the agents, and the documents. Yeah, I thought I owned it, he finally squeezed out. Mom never told me. Mr. Miller, Agent Kim interrupted. If you've been using this property as collateral for loans without owning it, it seriously worsens your situation. He didn't know. I heard my own voice, surprised at its calmness. I never told him I owned the house. All eyes turned to me. Mrs. Miller, Agent Rodriguez said slowly, do you confirm that you purchased this house in your own name but allowed your son to believe it was his property? He nodded. Marcus had been denied mortgages twice. I used my savings to buy the house but let him think the bank had finally approved his application to protect his pride. Oh my God, Sally whispered from the couch. All this time. And the recent events, Agent Kim asked. Were you aware your son was using this house as collateral for loans? No, I didn't know, Marcus shouted, his face turning red. I swear I thought the house was mine. How could I have known? Linda cleared her throat diplomatically. Gentlemen, perhaps we should sit down and discuss this situation more calmly. There's obviously been a misunderstanding here. The agents agreed and we all moved to the living room. I sat in the chair across from the couch where Marcus and Sally were sitting. The agents took seats on either side, and Linda remained standing, acting as moderator of this strange meeting. So, Agent Rodriguez began, let's clarify. Mrs. Miller is the legal owner of this house. Mr. Miller unknowingly used it as collateral for several loans. Is that correct? Yes, Linda confirmed. And my client is prepared to provide a sworn statement that she did not authorize her son to do these things and was unaware of them. You knew all along. Marcus's voice was quiet but filled with rage. All these years you let me think this was my home. I looked him in the eye. Yes, Marcus. I knew. Why? His voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were so proud that you'd finally gotten bank approval, I answered quietly. You were so happy thinking you'd done it on your own. I didn't want to take that feeling away from you. So it was all fake, his face twisted with anger. All this time you were deceiving me. I meant well, Marcus. Well, he jumped to his feet. You let me think I owned the house, and now that I'm in trouble, suddenly it turns out to be your house. Is this your way of getting revenge? Mr. Miller, Agent Kim intervened. Please sit down. Marcus sank back onto the couch, his body vibrating with tension. Mrs. Miller, Agent Rodriguez continued, what are your intentions regarding this property? I looked at Linda, who nodded encouragingly. I want to keep my property, I said firmly. But I also want to make sure my grandchildren don't end up homeless. I see, the agent nodded. In that case, the property seizure on this house should be lifted since the property doesn't belong to the subject of investigation. Fine. Sally spoke up for the first time in the meeting. Then we can stay here. I turned to her, feeling anger that had been building for years. In my house, Sally. The house of a woman you spent years treating badly, treating like a servant, kicking out a month ago. Her face went pale. We didn't know it was yours. And if you had, would you have treated me differently? I asked, surprised at my own directness. Does respect depend on who owns the walls? Sally looked down, unable to find an answer. Mom, Marcus stepped forward. His tone suddenly soft, pleading. I understand you're upset. I was wrong to tell you to leave. I'm sorry. But this isn't the time for family arguments. We could lose everything. Could go to jail. Please help us. I looked at him. This grown man who suddenly became a scared boy again when he was in trouble. Part of me wanted to hug him, to protect him like I always had. But the other part, the stronger part, knew this had to end. "I'll help you, Marcus," I said calmly. "But not the same way as before. Not by ignoring your mistakes. Not by solving your problems for you." "What does that mean?" His voice shook. "It means you'll face the consequences of your actions. If you took bribes, if you forged documents, you'll answer for it. I won't interfere with the investigation. But the house belongs to me," I said firmly. "And from now on, everyone will know it." Marcus fell back against the couch, his face showing pain and anger. "Is this what it's about? Are you finally showing your true colors? You've been pretending to be a caring mother all this time, but you were waiting for revenge." "Don't be ridiculous," Sally interrupted to my surprise. "Your mother spent her life savings to buy us a house. She let us live here free for 15 years. How can you accuse her of revenge?" Marcus turned to his wife, shocked by her sudden support for me. "Whose side are you on?" "The side of reality, Marcus," Sally answered tiredly. For the first time in a long time. The agents looked around, clearly uncomfortable in the middle of family drama. "Perhaps we should give the family time to talk privately," Agent Rodriguez suggested, standing up. "Mrs. Miller, we'll contact you to further discuss your property matters. Mr. Miller, you should report to the DA's office tomorrow at 10 a.m. for further proceedings." The agents left, leaving us in heavy silence. Linda gave me a questioning look, and I nodded, letting her know I could handle it. "I'll wait for you in the car, Mrs. Miller," she said, nodding politely to everyone present. When the door closed behind Linda, there was even deeper silence. I looked around the living room, the familiar walls, the pictures, the furniture. Everything so familiar yet so strange at the same time. "Where are the children?" finally asked. "At my sister's," Sally answered. "We sent them there yesterday after the agents came." I nodded, grateful that Tommy and Rose hadn't witnessed this scene. "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked, his voice hollow and defeated. "With the house," clarified. "With everything," he spread his hands. "With the house, with us, with me." I took a deep breath. "The house will remain mine, just as it always was. As for you, that depends on many things." "Are you going to kick us out?" Sally asked bluntly. I looked at her. This woman who had looked down on me for years, who had turned my small room into storage space as soon as I left, who had told the children to call me Mrs. Miller instead of Grandma until I insisted otherwise. "I haven't decided yet," I answered honestly. "But if you stay, things will be different. You'll pay rent." "Market rent." "Rent!" Marcus exclaimed. "You're going to charge your own son." "Why not?" countered. "You've been taking money from your own mother for years. Remember that $15,000 I gave you last year for the family car? The one that became a motorcycle just for you." Marcus looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "That's different." "Why?" "Yes. Because you're my son and I'm just your mother who has to sacrifice everything for you, expecting nothing in return." "You don't understand," he muttered. "I'm in trouble. Serious trouble." "I understand perfectly," I replied. "And you know what? I also understand that if I save you again, if I take on all your problems, nothing will change. You'll never learn to take responsibility for your actions. So this is a lesson." His voice filled with anger again. "You're using my troubles to teach me. I'm tired, Marcus. Tired of lying, of pretending, of living beyond our means. Maybe this is a chance to change all that." I looked at her in amazement. Never before had I seen such honesty, such humanity in Sally. Marcus shifted his gaze from Sally to me, then back again. "You two are working together, aren't you?" His voice rose. "You're both determined to destroy me." "Don't be silly," Sally snorted. "We didn't plan this, but for perhaps the first time, we both see the situation clearly." Marcus jumped to his feet, his face twisted with rage. "This is betrayal." He pointed a shaking finger at me. You are my mother. You're supposed to support me, not throw me in the street when I'm in trouble. I've supported you all your life, Marcus, I replied calmly. And where did we end up? You're drowning in debt, under investigation, probably going to prison. Maybe it's time for a different approach. What approach? He spat out. Abandon me to my fate. No, I shook my head. Let you handle your own problems like an adult. He stared at me for a long minute, his chest heaving. I'll never forgive you for this, he finally said quietly. Never. The words hit me in the heart, but I didn't show it. Maybe, I replied. But I hope someday you'll understand. I stood up, feeling the conversation had reached its end. At least for today. I'll contact you through my attorney about next steps, I said, heading for the door. In the meantime, I think you both need time to think things over. I looked around one last time. Marcus was standing in the middle of the living room. His shoulders slumped, his face showing anger and despair. Sally was looking out the window again, her profile thoughtful, almost peaceful. When I stepped outside, I felt strangely relieved, as if a heavy weight I'd carried for years had finally been lifted from my shoulders. Of course, there were still many challenges ahead. But at that moment, walking to the car where Linda was waiting, I felt freer than I had in 15 years. How did it go? Linda asked as I got in the passenger seat. Hard, I answered honestly. But necessary. She nodded understandingly. What do you want to do next, Mrs. Miller? I looked at the house. My house. Thinking of all the possibilities now open to me. I want to move forward, I said. To finally move forward. 4 days later, I was sitting in Linda Peterson's office, reviewing the paperwork she had prepared. The lease agreement, the formal notice of ownership, the letter demanding back rent, all drafted with perfect legal precision. Is everything all right, Mrs. Miller? Linda asked, noticing I was lingering over the page with rent calculations. Yes, I answered, though the amount, $1,800 a month, made me wince slightly. Is that really the market rate? Actually a bit lower, Linda nodded. Given the house size and neighborhood, we could ask for $2,500, but I thought under the circumstances. No, you're right. I signed the document decisively. Market rate should be market rate. Linda nodded approvingly. When do you want to meet with your son and his wife? Tomorrow. I folded my hands in my lap. The sooner the better. In that case, I'll call them and arrange a meeting here at the office. That will provide neutral ground. Agreed. Even though part of me wanted to hold the meeting in the house. My house. To symbolically assert my ownership, Linda was right. The office would provide a more professional, less emotional atmosphere. That evening, Betty called. So, big day tomorrow. There was excitement in her voice. Yes, I replied, settling into my chair with a cup of tea. Tomorrow I'll officially offer Marcus and Sally a choice. Pay rent or move out. And what do you think they'll choose? I thought about it, remembering Sally's face at the window, her sudden acceptance of reality. Honestly, I don't know. Marcus is too proud to pay me rent, but Sally's more practical. And with Marcus being investigated and suspended, he sighed. I doubt they can afford anything comparable to my house. Your house, Betty repeated with satisfaction. It's so nice to finally hear you say that. I smiled, raising the cup to my lips. Yes, my house. Feels strange, doesn't it? For 15 years it was mine, but only now am I starting to feel it. What about the kids? Betty asked. Have you talked to them? Tommy. I felt my voice soften at the mention of my grandson. He called yesterday. They came back from Sally's sisters and he was allowed to use the phone. Allowed? Betty snorted. As if talking to your grandmother is a privilege, not a right. That's Sally's way. I shrugged, though Betty couldn't see it. Anyway, Tommy said he missed me. I promised I'd see him soon, regardless of what his parents decided. And Rose? I don't know, I admitted with slight sadness. She's always been closer to Sally. I'm afraid my granddaughter has already absorbed her mother's attitude toward me. Children are smarter than we think, Betty comforted me. Give her time. The next day, I put on my best outfit, navy blue with silver buttons, and headed to Linda Peterson's office. I arrived 20 minutes early to gather my thoughts. Linda met me in the waiting area, as perfectly dressed and calm as ever. They're here, she said quietly. They arrived before you did. I nodded, feeling my heart start beating faster. Despite my resolve, the thought of another confrontation with Marcus made me nervous. Are you ready? Linda asked. Yes. I straightened my shoulders. I'm ready. When we entered the conference room, I immediately noticed how much Marcus had changed in the past few days. His usually neat shirt was wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes, and stubble on his chin. Sally, on the other hand, looked focused and determined, though tired. Mom, Marcus said, standing up. His voice was a mixture of bitterness and hope. Marcus, Sally. I nodded to them both, taking a seat across from them. Linda sat next to me and opened her file folder. Thank you all for being prompt. As you know, we're here today to discuss the ownership of the house at 28 Oak Street and how to proceed. We know the house belongs to Mom, Marcus interrupted, his voice sounding tired. There's no need to explain it again. Very well, Linda continued smoothly. In that case, let's get to This isn't your house, Mr. Miller, Linda reminded him gently. It never was. I raised my children there. Marcus pounded his fist on the table. 15 years. 15 years this house was our home. By your mother's grace, Sally said, not looking up from the papers. Who let us live there free all that time? Marcus stared at his wife, clearly not expecting such betrayal. Whose side are you on? The side of reality, Marcus, Sally replied tiredly. Your mother owns the house. She has the right to demand rent or ask us to move out. I looked at Sally with new respect. In recent days, she seemed to have transformed from an arrogant daughter-in-law to a realistic, practical woman. Do you need time to think about your options? Linda asked. Sally and Marcus exchanged glances. No, Sally said after a pause. I think we already know what we need to do. She put the papers back on the table and turned to me. We're moving out, she said simply. Within 30 days, as stated in the agreement. Marcus flinched but didn't object. His shoulders dropped as if he'd finally given up. Are you sure? Linda asked. Perhaps you should discuss it privately. We already did, Sally replied. Last night after Marcus's hearing. I looked at my son questioningly. Probation, he mumbled, not looking up. 3 years and a fine. A big fine. I'm sorry, I said, and it was true. Despite everything that had happened, I didn't want my son to suffer. You don't need to be sorry, Mom. Marcus's voice was hollow. You were right. I created this mess myself. Sally squeezed his hand. We'll start over, she said with unexpected tenderness. We'll find a smaller apartment. I'll go back to work full-time. We'll be okay. I felt something tighten in my chest. For perhaps the first time, Marcus and Sally were acting like a real team, supporting each other in crisis. What about my offer to help with the security deposit? He asked. Sally opened her mouth to answer, but Marcus beat her to it. No, thank you, he said quietly but firmly. We'll manage on our own. I nodded, understanding it was a matter of pride, the last fortress he could defend. And the children? Asked, moving to what concerned me most. I'd like to keep seeing them. Marcus and Sally exchanged glances again. Of course, Sally said after a pause. They love you, especially Tommy. Thank you. I felt some tension release. Linda coughed. In that case, let's sign the move-out agreement. She pulled out a document, and Marcus and Sally took turns signing it. When the paper reached me, I held my pen over the signature line for a moment. There's something else I want to make clear, I said, looking at both of them. It's not about the house, but about our relationship. They looked at me expectantly. Many things will change after you move out, I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. I won't be your babysitter anymore. I won't be your housekeeper or cook, and I won't be your emergency bank account. Marcus pressed his lips together but didn't object. I'm still your mother and your children's grandmother, I continued. And I will always love you, but I will no longer allow myself to be used or taken for granted. That's fair, Sally said suddenly. We were wrong to treat you the way we did. I looked at her in surprise. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from her. Thank you, Sally, I said sincerely. Marcus remained silent, his face unreadable. I signed the document and handed it to Linda. What are you going to do with the house? Marcus asked suddenly. After we move out. I hesitated for a moment. It was a good question, one I'd been asking myself for days. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. Maybe I'll rent it out, maybe sell it, or maybe I'll move back in myself. You're not coming back to us, are you? There was a strange mixture of relief and regret in his voice. No, Marcus. I shook my head. I'm not coming back to you. That was the end of our meeting. We walked out of Linda Peterson's office, saying awkward goodbyes on the sidewalk. We'll let you know when we find a new place, Sally said. About the kids. Maybe you could take them for the weekend while we pack? I'd love to. I couldn't hide the joy in my voice. Marcus stood silent, looking past my shoulder. As Sally headed toward their car, he finally spoke. I'm still angry at you, he said quietly. For hiding the truth about the house, for not saving me this time. I know, I replied. And I'm sorry you feel betrayed, but someday maybe you'll realize that sometimes the biggest help is letting someone face the consequences of their actions. He snorted but didn't argue. Goodbye, Mom, he said, turning to leave. Not goodbye, I corrected. See you later. He didn't answer, just walked to the car where Sally was waiting. I watched them drive away, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. Something ended today. Not just 15 years of lying about the house, but decades of unhealthy relationships where I always gave more than I received. Back in my apartment, I immediately noticed the blinking light on my answering machine. 6 messages, all from Marcus, left over the past 2 days. I didn't bother listening to them. Instead, I deleted them one by one, clearing my memory and my mind for new possibilities. The next morning I woke up feeling different, lighter somehow. I made myself a proper breakfast, something I rarely did when I lived with Marcus and Sally, always too busy taking care of everyone else. As I sat at my small kitchen table, looking out at the oak trees in the park, I realized that for the first time in decades, I was truly free to make my own choices. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Tommy. Grandma. His voice was small and uncertain. Can I really come stay with you this weekend? Of course, sweetheart, I said, my heart swelling with love for this brave little boy. I'm already planning what we'll do together. Mom says we're moving to a smaller house, he said. Are you sad? I thought about how to answer honestly without burdening him with adult complexities. Sometimes changes are hard, I said. But they can also lead to good things. The most important thing is that I'll always be your grandma, no matter where any of us live. I love you, Grandma, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. I love you too, Tommy. More than all the stars in the sky. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair and thought about the future. For so many years, I had defined myself by what I could do. What would you like to paint? Helen asked. I looked out the window at the oak trees, their leaves now fully orange and gold. I think I'd like to paint those trees, I said. They're so beautiful in the fall. Perfect choice, Helen smiled. There's something special about capturing a moment of change. Yes, that's exactly what this was. As I dipped my brush in water and then in yellow paint, I thought about how sometimes we have to lose everything we thought we wanted to discover what we actually need. For 15 years, I had lived a lie to protect Marcus's pride. For decades before that, I had put everyone else's needs before my own. But now, at 70 years old, I was finally learning to put myself first. Not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. The painting class was just the beginning. Over the following weeks, I enrolled in other activities. A book club at the library, a walking group that met in the park every morning, even a computer class to learn how to video chat with Tommy and Rose when they moved to their new home. Each new experience felt like a small rebellion against the person I used to be. The person who always said yes, who always put others first, who never asked for anything in return. Now I was learning to say no when I needed, to ask for help when I wanted it, and to put my own well-being at the center of my decisions. It wasn't easy. 70 years of habits don't change overnight. But every day got a little easier. 3 months later, I received a letter from Marcus and Sally. They had found a small apartment across town and were settling in well. Sally had gotten a promotion at her job, and Marcus was working part-time at a hardware store while serving his probation. Most importantly, Tommy was doing well in his new school, and even Rose seemed to be adjusting. "We want to thank you," Sally had written in neat handwriting. "We know it doesn't make up for how we treated you, but we're learning to live within our means and take responsibility for our choices. The kids ask about you all the time. Would you like to have them for Christmas?" I read the letter twice, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Pride in Marcus and Sally for taking responsibility. Joy at the thought of Christmas with my grandchildren. And yes, a deep satisfaction in knowing that sometimes the hardest choices are the right choices. I sat down at my kitchen table and wrote back immediately. "Dear Marcus and Sally, I would love to have the children for Christmas. I'm proud of both of you for the changes you're making. Love always, Mom and Grandma Dorothy." As I sealed the envelope, I looked around my small apartment. My space, filled with my books, my paintings from art class, my plants that I chose and cared for. On the windowsill sat a photo of Tommy and Rose from their last visit, both of them grinning as they helped me bake cookies. It wasn't the life I had planned when I was younger. But it was a good life. A life built on honesty, self-respect, and love that asked for nothing impossible in return. Sometimes the best gift we can give the people we love is the gift of letting them grow up, face their mistakes, and learn to stand on their own. And sometimes the best gift we can give ourselves is the courage to finally, truly come home.